What if the person you trust most becomes your worst nightmare? That question hung heavy in the air the night Ashley Benefield pulled out a gun and changed everything. From the outside, it seemed like a fairy tale, a beautiful former ballerina, a wealthy husband who promised stability, a new life waiting. But behind closed doors, darkness. Ashley was just 24 when she met Doug Benefield, a 54-year-old former Navy veteran and tech consultant. Their world collided at a political fundraiser in 2016. Within 13 days, they were married. It was whirlwind, dazzling, the kind of romance that makes people gasp. But in that rush, nobody saw the cracks forming. The Washington Post +2, CBS Haber +2. At first, critics called it impulsive. But to Ashley, it was destiny. Yet fate has a way of wearing white swans black. They attempted to build a life together. They even tried launching a ballet company, the American National Ballet, NB. A glamorous idea. Dancers, ambition, spotlight. But behind the choreography and glitter sat instability. The company collapsed under vague promises and financial trouble. For many dancers, illusions shattered. For Ashley, the collapse was just the beginning. The Washington Post +2, Wikipedia +2. Then came the whispers. Ashley began to say Doug was controlling, manipulative. She claimed he'd once fired a gun into the ceiling during an argument. She said he had harmed their dog. She described nights of silence turned violent. She spoke of tea he made her drink and suspicion of poison. She painted a portrait of fear. Newsweek +2, CBS Haber +2. But authorities investigated. No charges. Despite her fears, their daughter was born in 2018, and somehow, Doug was kept at arm's length. Ashley didn't list him on the birth certificate. He didn't meet his daughter for months. Custody battles, legal maneuvers, the tension built, slow and suffocating. CBS Haber +2, Wikipedia +2. By 2020, they seemed trapped in a marriage turned prison. Ashley told friends and family she felt cornered. She moved back to her mother's house. They planned a new start, a moving truck, a fresh state, a chance to escape. Doug agreed to help pack. On the surface, normal. But after years of manipulation and fear, normal seldom stays safe. CBS Haber +2, CBS Haber +2. That night, September 27, 2020, everything changed. Darkness fell inside a quiet Florida house. The evening air was heavy with unspoken words. Doug helped load the family's life into a U-Haul, while Ashley's mother took their toddler daughter out to a nearby park, supposedly for a stroll. The stage seemed set for a new life. Instead, it became the scene of tragedy. Wikipedia +2, CBS Haber +2. Silence shattered by a scream. A neighbor heard it and dialed 911. Moments later, Ashley stumbled to another neighbor's doorstep, trembling, a .45 caliber gun in hand. She was terrified, she said. She claimed, "I shot Doug. He attacked me." CBS Haber +2, CBS Haber +2. Ambulance lights, a race to the hospital. Doug still alive, but unable to speak. An hour later, dead. Gunshot wounds, 2 bullets. One struck his leg, another his torso. But forensic investigators dropped the first shock. The fatal shot had entered as he was turning away from Ashley. Not charging, not lunging, his back partially turned. Not consistent with her story of self-defense. CBS Haber +2, The Washington Post +2. Why did she shoot? Was it fear, desperation, escape? Or a chilling plan disguised as panic? In the days that followed, sides hardened. Ashley's mother said they'd lived in terror for years. Police found other guns in the house, loaded, unsecured. A friend turned flame. Dark patterns. CBS Haber +2, CBS Haber +2. Detective notes, crime scene evidence. The more investigators dug, the less their lie of self-defense held. In November 2020, Ashley was charged with second-degree murder. She pleaded not guilty. Her defense, she acted to save her life. They painted Doug as a manipulative, dangerous man. The Washington Post +2, Wikipedia +2. But prosecutors argued differently. They said the motive was custody. She didn't want Doug in her child's life. That night, with cold calculation perhaps, she ended it. Global News +2, The Washington Post +2. Despite the self-defense claim, the jury in July 2024 saw through the contradictions. Guilty of manslaughter. Her bond revoked. The fairy tale ended. Silence followed. Global News +2, Guardian +2. And in December 2024 came the sentence. 20 years in prison plus probation, a life transformed by one bullet. Se veese haber más dos guardián más dos. But the truth? The truth, as with many dark stories, is tangled. Was she a desperate woman finally pushed too far, or a manipulative wife who planned murder under the guise of fear? Witnesses recall lockjaw calm. Neighbors heard no struggle before the gunshot. Forensic evidence suggested Doug was not charging her. The gun within reach. Loaded guns throughout the house. Yet Ashley cried, shook, and told her story. She spoke of terror, of a life with a man she married turned into a monster. She said she was fighting not just for herself, but for her child. America watched. Headlines screamed. The media dubbed her the Black Swan, a twisted allusion to grace turned madness. But maybe the real horror was not a mental breakdown, but a relationship slowly strangled by control, lies, and fear. CBS Haber +2, The Washington Post +2. You might ask, what really happened in that house on September 27th? No se tove futi. No witness saw the moment. No third party can testify to the instant the trigger was pulled. All that remains, 2 versions a night, 2 lives, 1 verdict. And one question burning in a mind. If survival feels like murder, who deserves the verdict? The courtroom smelled of polished wood and anxiety. Ashley walked in, petite frame-clad in a dark suit. Eyes darting, hands trembling. Yet the camera lights made her look like a doll frozen in time. Observers whispered. Some saw fear. Others saw calculation. Which was it? The prosecution wasted no time. They painted Doug Benefield not as a villain, but as a man wronged, a husband trying to help pack a moving truck, killed in what they argued was cold-blooded premeditation. She didn't act in self-defense. The prosecutor said, voice rising, she acted to remove a man from her life permanently. The defense countered immediately. Ashley's lawyer spoke softly, almost pleading. You will hear that Ashley lived in fear. Every day, every night. This was not murder. This was survival. And the evidence began to unravel. Gun residue on Ashley's hands, yes, but also on Doug's shirt. Fingerprints, trajectory analysis. It became a chessboard of bullets and angles. The jury leaned forward, hearts beating with every new exhibit. Every calculation of distance, every claim about posture or movement became a possible turning point. Witnesses entered, each one a shard of the fractured reality. Ashley's friends described her as anxious, jumpy, obsessed with Doug's moods. She called me crying almost nightly, one testified. She was scared, terrified. He controlled everything. Then came Doug's colleagues. They remembered a man precise, charismatic, but sometimes unpredictable. I never saw him hit her, one said, hesitating, but his temper, it was sharp. Questions hung in the air. Was this a man with sudden violent tendencies, or a man being misrepresented by a frightened young wife? The media ran snippets. Ballerina shoots husband in shocking Florida crime. Black Swan murder trial. Wife claims self-defense. Social media lit up with theories, memes, and public outrage. Yet behind the headlines, the courtroom drama moved slowly, methodically, like a ballet. Only this time, the performance was tragedy. Then came the forensic reconstruction. 2 bullets. One entered Doug's leg, non-fatal, incidental. The second, the fatal one, hit the torso. The angle suggested Doug was turning away, not charging, not raising his hands, not threatening in that moment. A silence filled the courtroom. Every juror shifted. The question became louder. Could fear justify that shot? Ashley's own testimony was raw. Eyes wide, voice quivering. I thought he would kill me. I didn't know what to do. I had to protect my child. I had to survive. She described moments when he screamed, slammed doors, fired warning shots, and the nights she felt trapped. The audience in the room could feel the panic in her words. Some jurors nodded. Others seemed unconvinced. Cross-examinations cracked through calm facades. The prosecution asked pointedly, "If you were so scared, why did you plan a move with him present? Why did you load a gun instead of calling police?" Each question was a dagger. Each answer a slippery thread between truth and perception. The defense returned to human psychology. "You've heard of trauma bonds," Ashley's lawyer said, eyes on the jury. She loved him. She feared him. She was trapped in a cycle that most cannot understand. She made a split-second choice in extreme fear. And still, outside the courtroom, commentators debated. Could a former ballerina, graceful and disciplined, truly be pushed to murder? Or was her poise masking something darker? A plan disguised as panic? Every day of the trial introduced new twists. A neighbor admitted he'd heard an argument, but his memory was unclear. A former employee spoke of Doug's temper at A&B, but never witnessed violence toward Ashley. Every testimony pulled in opposite directions, like a pendulum swinging over a chasm of uncertainty. One moment defined the tension. The jury saw a recreation of the packing day. A demonstrative diagram showed Doug helping load boxes, Ashley in the corner. Then a gun. The jury gasped, the distance between them minimal. Could she really fear for her life in that split second? Or did she seize an opportunity? The question was devastating in its simplicity, impossible to ignore. Defense experts on psychology testified. Ashley's trauma history, her constant fear, her mental strain, were not excusing the act. One said, "We're explaining the extreme psychological environment that led to it." Every phrase seemed to hang in the air like smoke, intangible yet suffocating. The media dubbed moments "ballet of terror," highlighting Ashley's disciplined yet frenzied movements during the crime. Black Swan, grace corrupted into fear. Headlines amplified the drama. Social media amplified the speculation. Public opinion split. Was she a heroine or a murderer? As closing arguments approached, tension reached a fever pitch. Prosecutors revisited the fatal trajectory, the intent, the planning. Defense lawyers reminded jurors of fear, isolation, and a mother's desperate instinct. And Ashley, silent in the gallery, watched her life's narrative shrink into two simple words: guilt or innocence. The jury deliberated. Hours stretched into days. Every minute, questions of morality, law, and perception collided. Could a young woman, cornered and terrified, act in a moment that seemed murder to some, but survival to others? The pendulum of justice swung slowly, deliberately. The courtroom was tense. Ashley sat, eyes fixed on the wooden table in front of her, fingers intertwined, knuckles white. Outside, cameras clicked. Inside, silence, a heavy, almost suffocating silence. Every breath seemed amplified. Everyone waited for the jury. After days of deliberation, the door opened. Jurors filed in, expressions unreadable. The foreperson cleared their throat. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of manslaughter." The words hit like a hammer. Ashley's shoulders slumped. Some spectators gasped. Others nodded, as if confirming a dark suspicion. Guilty. Not murder, not self-defense, manslaughter. A verdict that neither fully condemned nor fully excused. A legal middle ground in a moral quagmire. Sentencing came in December 2024. 20 years in prison plus probation. The judge's words were precise, measured, leaving no room for interpretation. Justice, they said, had to acknowledge both the act and the environment that led to it. Ashley, a ballerina who once danced on stage with grace and poise, would now spend years confined by bars, not applause. Outside the courthouse, opinions clashed. Some called her a victim, a woman terrorized by a controlling spouse, finally pushed to her limit. Others called her a killer, arguing the fatal shot could have been avoided. Social media burned with speculation. Black Swan, heroine or murderer? Headlines blared, debates raged. Yet behind every tweet, every post, remained the human reality of a life shattered. Ashley's parents mourned privately. Friends spoke in hushed tones about the brilliance of her ballet career, the collapse of her dreams, and the darkness that had crept into their daughter's life. And in all that, one question lingered. Could it have been prevented? Inside the prison walls, Ashley began the slow, painful process of confronting her actions. Letters to her daughter were carefully written, trying to maintain a connection across years of separation. Therapy sessions exposed layers of fear, manipulation, and trauma. Every day, she relived the night of the shooting, the panic, the adrenaline, the weight of the gun in her hand. But the story didn't end in the courtroom. Legal appeals were filed, arguments about intent, psychological state, and evidence nuances pressed forward. While the law followed one path, the court of public opinion remained fractured, divided, and relentless. What makes the Ashley Benefield case haunting is not just the shooting, but the human contradictions at its core. A woman of talent and beauty, a man of influence and control, and a child caught between worlds. Fear versus reason. Love versus survival. A life rewritten by one moment, one bullet, one irreversible decision. Some say tragedy is inevitable when two forces collide with unexamined extremes. For Ashley and Doug, their collision was catastrophic. The Black Swan, nickname, once a metaphor for grace and beauty, became a symbol of danger and unpredictability, of a love story twisted into horror. And yet, the story leaves an uncomfortable truth. Morality is messy. Fear can be real, yet deadly. Intent can be clouded, and survival instincts can mimic malice. Viewers, observers, and jurors alike are forced to wrestle with questions that have no easy answers. In the end, the Black Swan murder is more than a crime. It's a study in psychology, human fragility, and the darkness that can creep into even the most dazzling lives. Ashley Benefield may now be behind bars, but the story echoes far beyond the walls of a Florida prison, reminding us that appearances deceive and that sometimes the line between victim and perpetrator is razor thin. So you might ask yourself, if someone lives in fear for years and one moment defines the rest of their life, what would you do? And as the curtains close on this tragic ballet, one truth remains. Some stories are impossible to forget. The Black Swan's flight ended in shadow, and the echoes of that night will haunt anyone who dares to watch closely enough.